everyone. This is so nice. This is an honor for me to be able to be here today and listen to the music of this piano. This piano has to stay forever. For all in Brother Alive conferences, and the piano player Javier Puche, always here with us. So Joyce Dogniez, thank you very much. It is an honor for us to be able to interview you. So the Internet Society Foundation promotes positive differences in the access to internet, into connectivity. We will be talking about this all through the interview, but let's put some images.
An internet connection, the world is open to you. And we are the ones who should be changing the narrative. And that is how you change countries.
Conexión a internet te puede cambiar la vida, nosotros podemos cambiar la narrativa. Qué bonito. Bueno, deciros que...
That is so nice, so beautiful. And well, Joyce, I didn't say it, speaks Spanish, is fluent in Spanish, but we will conduct the interview in English. She will be speaking in English. So you've been working with NGOs across the world for many years. Good morning, everyone. It's easy for me if I speak in English. It's easier for me for this type of vocabulary.
Access and access to the internet, but mostly access to all the opportunities that the internet brings. And so we focus on the areas that are the hardest to reach. So where often there is no commercial interest yet for companies to expand the networks and to bring connectivity to people in rural areas, in remote areas. And one of the things that over the 30 years of history of the Internet Society, one of the pillars as well is that we believe very strongly that to expand the internet, you need to build local capacity. You don't have to go in and do the things for people. You really need to build the local capacity so that people have the capacity and the skills and the knowledge to not only build the networks, but then also to maintain it and expand them at local level. And so the training images you saw just now was an evolution of our training program, which obviously, like many of us, had to do things online during COVID. And so as soon as we were able to, we started deploying our trainings again in person. And so this was a pilot program in Kenya initially, where we train young people to design and to deploy computer networks. You saw the images, you saw the story there, but in essence what we were trying to do is with the pilot was to see whether there was impact. And as you saw, 80% of the young people who took part in the training actually found employment. So the need for the training is clearly there. And at the same time in Zimbabwe, we did the same training as a train-the-trainer program, where through we have now almost 60 teachers of senior high schools, TVET institutions, and other educational institutions who are trained and who in turn, not even 1 year after their training, trained over 2,000 young people. And so we really wanted to see whether we could scale the program without having to do 25 at a time, which knowing that, I think that the latest numbers, our colleague from the ITU could probably confirm, is 2.6 billion people who still don't have access to the internet, who still don't have access to the opportunities that the internet brings, which is, as we all know, communication, connection, but also health, education, financial systems, and so much more. Things that we take for granted, and we curse really badly when the internet is not fast enough, but many people just don't have that opportunity just yet. And so the programs that we are doing is meant to, is mostly, I would say, technically focused, or at least on technical topics, as the Internet Society focuses on the health of the internet as an infrastructure, again, something we take for granted. But the internet doesn't come out of thin air. There's actually cables and plugs that are being built for that, and protocols, as we heard yesterday as well. Lots of protocols that actually make the internet work. And so those are the things that we at the Internet Society look at, is to make sure that this internet stays this open, globally connected, secure, very important, and trustworthy infrastructure, this tool that has changed all of our lives and continues to change it.
Es importante también recordar de vez en cuando ese privilegio.
We have to understand that we are privileged to have an internet connection at our fingertips. This is something that not everybody has. You said to me that, you know, women that have to walk long distances just to get to work every day. You will be talking about advocacy, our protection, right protection. We will try and explain for everyone to understand these concepts. What is encryption? What does that mean? How can that make internet safer?
Opportunities, obviously, which is what I like to focus on, because that is what makes me go every day. And when I wake up in the morning and I think of, I actually had the opportunity to talk to some of the ladies you saw in the video. When I talk to them and I see how with one training we actually gave them opportunities, that's what keeps me going. At the same time, there's lots of threats to this amazing tool as well. And so one of the threats that we are facing right now in particular is some of the threats related to encryption. And so I'm not a technical person, so I know there's some very technical people in the room, I saw some, so please don't quote me on my technical stuff. I see some in the front row. So,
¿Cómo podríamos explicarlo, no? Así.
But so, if you think of encryption, I mean, how many of you use WhatsApp?
¿Solo?
Signal?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
How many of you have seen that little message on top of WhatsApp that says end-to-end encryption, end-to-end encrypted? Open WhatsApp. If you haven't seen it, open WhatsApp and have a look. There's a message that says, your messages are end-to-end encrypted. What that means is that when you write a message, the message is scrambled, basically. I'm simplifying the concept, but it's basically scrambled so that when you send your message to whoever you're sending, I'm sending a message to Jan, for example, my message is scrambled, and he is the only one that can actually read the message once it gets to him. You need a code to be able to, you would need a specific code to be able to read that message. And so if I send it to Jan, Jan is the only one with a code who can actually read that message. And so encryption is there to protect all of our messages. It's there to make sure that whatever I send, and it could be, maybe I'm just telling Jan that we're going to meet on one of the terraces and we saw a couple for another drink, which might be a nice thing. But at the same time, I could be writing to my lawyer because I need something really important to be discussed. And I may want to write a couple of things that are pretty confidential and that I only want him to see. And so that encryption part is really critical for the security of all of us, specifically. And journalists, for example, I'm looking at you, Paula, but we have a couple others. Journalists really depend on that for their safety in many cases. So when they go to risky areas, the communication that they have, they really depend on that encryption for their own safety, for their personal safety. So it's not just, I don't want you to come to the same terrace as Jan and I are going to go and have a drink at, but it can actually really save lives.
Nosotros, por ejemplo, desde Periodismo Ciudadano.
Yes, and periodismociudadano.com work with many activists, and for them, being able to use encrypted messages means is a life or death aspects. Now the European Union is working on a legislation on a norm that affects encryption and, of course, our rights as a consequence.
Actually now in discussion on breaking encryption, on breaking, or what we say also weakening encryption. And so what it actually means is that with very valid reasons, I mean, the discussion goes around child pornography and child online protection, which obviously is an extremely important topic. I have an 11-year-old, and so I am totally on board with the importance of the topic. At the same time, the proposals that are being discussed is to actually break that encryption. Now, if I break encryption and I allow governments or law enforcement to see the messages so that they can scan whether I am sending child pornography around, once you open that door, the door is open for everyone. And so the challenge that we see is that governments are trying to solve an issue with the wrong means. And so the two things that are being discussed is and the Council and Parliament are actually, European Council and European Parliament are having two different discussions, which is fascinating, but that's a whole different discussion, is that part of the governments want to really break encryption and actually ask the applications, the service providers, the application providers, WhatsApps of the world, to allow them to actually see the messages. And so that's what we would call breaking encryption. The other discussion that is ongoing is like, no, we should not break encryption, but we should do what is called client-side scanning. And what that means, it's very scary in my personal opinion, is that they would actually install something on all of the devices that would allow them to read the messages before they are encrypted. Which basically means it's the same thing as for those who still write letters, which we see quite a young generation here as well, which may not be very much a thing anymore. But when you write letters, it would mean that somebody is reading your letter while you're writing it and watching it over your shoulder to see what you're writing before you're putting it in the letter and sending it by the mail. So those are two things that are being discussed. In the UK, sadly, not the EU anymore, but in the UK, they last week just passed a bill called the Online Safety Bill, which basically tells all the service providers that they have to find a way to actually eliminate harmful content, illegal content, and potentially harmful content without a clear definition of what harmful is, and they would leave it up to the service providers to actually do that, which implies that they will need to scan all of our messages. So not just the ones that are harmful, because they need to read it before they can actually define whether it's harmful or not. And so it would actually mean that they would ask the service providers, the applications, the service providers, to read or to scan all of the messages to determine whether the content is harmful or illegal or not. And then notify, obviously, government and law enforcement and so on. So there's a big debate going on right now. There's even discussions of some of the bigger applications, including Facebook and others, to pull out of the UK. But so that is the threat that we now see to online safety, and it has many implications, not only for the life of every day.
Sí, que afectan.
Yes, of course, that has an impact on the idea of an open internet that you were talking about. It is especially astounding to see what Spain thinks about this. Spain is opposing this encryption protection initiative.
Of the European Council right now.
De la
and so they have been taking positions actually to break encryption. which obviously we are trying through advocacy work as well to counter and to make sure that they understand the consequences. I mean, what our role in all of this is that coming from the technical community, as we call it, so looking at how the internet functions, there is a consequence on the well-functioning of the internet as well if you break encryption. And so we are really trying to advocate and to educate policymakers and politicians in what the consequences would be of breaking encryption. And hopefully with, if we can partner with other organizations, with enough other organizations and get enough support from the public, from all of you, from everybody out there, we can make sure that our online safety is guaranteed, and online privacy and human rights and freedom of speech and the list goes on. So that it goes beyond the technical implications. It goes really to our lives online, basically.
A veces parece que
Sometimes they use subterfuges like national security when they say that something is a national security threat, or pedophilia and things like that. And that is true, but we feel like we are being manipulated for those ends.
I really want to say it again. I mean, national security is another thing, but online safety is critical. Child online safety is a critical component. Nothing to be said about that. National safety is really important. I mean, they're really trying. The motives are right. I mean, the topics that they are trying to solve are really important, and we need to find a solution. The breaking encryption, we don't believe that breaking encryption is the right solution because it's going to jeopardize all of us. Once you give a key to somebody, it's easy to copy it. I mean, I'm simplifying the concept, but once you break the tool, it's very difficult to then put it back. If this leads to massive surveillance of populations, some people may say, yeah, but you know, it's for the good of society, and we are in a democratic country. My answer to that is always, yes, we are today. What about tomorrow? I mean, I've had, as you've seen as well in the video, I have to say the pleasure, the honor, and the opportunity to work with people across the world, and with people in Afghanistan, with people in Iran, who maybe a couple of years ago thought it would have been okay, but today. And so it's the same thing for our countries as well. I mean, we were talking a little bit about politics with Jan, yes, on one of the terrorists, of course, but the politics are changing very quickly, and so we need to make sure that decisions of today don't have life-threatening consequences tomorrow. And that is really the debate that we are having.
No, y además este debate podría dar lugar a una legislación, ¿no? Claro,
Yes.
o sea.
Yes, of course, this discussion could change the standards and the legislation. There's also a draft bill in the UK that has just passed about it. Can you? Maybe we can explain it further. We have 10 minutes left, and maybe we can take questions from the audience, right, Jan? Yeah, use your front row position. No questions for the last row, only the first row. Well, thank you.
This super interesting presentation. You left me with a very bad feeling in the stomach for this morning, I have to confess. Because I think the pure size, and yesterday with Stephen King, we touched this topic already, but now it's getting down and settles down, and you see the whole grasp. So you mentioned, there's this threat of breaking encryption, but what is the alternative? So what are right now on the table to do an alternative approach to breaking encryption? What do you see?
So that is something that needs to be worked out. I mean, that is something that currently, and that's the interesting thing with the online safety bill in the UK, is that they are asking platforms, generally speaking platforms, to do something that is technically actually not possible. And so the answer to that is that, well, then the platform should invest in tools in which they can actually provide us with the information we need. And so there's part of there are ways to look at it. So there are ways to develop tools that would allow more online protection. Now, the challenges or the balance to be had is what do you want to give up for the online protection? The debate is also in talking to people that, so as I said, we look at it from a technical perspective, but talking to organizations who are more in the human rights space and freedom of speech space and child online protection is that it's still not very clear that when you would break encryption, you would actually have more opportunity to find the criminals that you're actually looking for. And so breaking encryption in that sense is not going to solve the issue. The issue needs to come from other things. And it may not be the technical solution. It may actually be a societal solution, not a technical solution. Now, it's a very complicated debate, and we talked about misinformation as well yesterday. It's a similar approach, like how do you put responsibility on the providers and on the platforms to make decisions on what is misinformation, or what is the truth, or what is a lie, in which context, on what moment in time, under which regime. So you're actually asking platforms to make decisions about what is harmful. And whether it's legal or not, there's a little bit more of, there's a clear line there. It's legal or it's illegal. There's, definition is made. Mm-hmm. But what is harmful? Harmful to whom? How harmful? So the definition of it is very vague. And so I think that there's work to be done on that side. And I think that, it's something that, again, at the Internet Society is kind of the philosophy of the Internet is such is that the only way to find solutions is by bringing all the players together. The multi-stakeholder approach, as we call it. So bringing governments with the technical community, with the corporate sector, with academia, and actually coming together to find a solution that is, one, workable, but that is also actually protecting the broader population in the use of, and that is giving these opportunities, because that is what is in play. Ultimately, and that is, I'm sorry we left you with a bad feeling, but I think it's a really important, a really important topic. But I want to bring it back to the opportunities.
Creo que es muy importante.
I think this is really important. We need to discuss these inconvenient things, to have inconvenient discussions, because there is truth behind it, and we all need to get access to truth. At the International Society Foundation, you write reports in certain situations for the broader society to know that a certain decision will have a certain impact. And
Internet briefs, where basically it's a methodology in which you can take a legislative proposal or any proposal, policy proposal, and analyze it and look at what the potential consequences would be on the well-functioning of the Internet, on the openness of the Internet, on the globally connectedness of the Internet, on the security, on the trustworthiness. So it goes through the four kind of basic core elements of the Internet, and you can evaluate a policy proposal against that. And so we did this for the legislation proposal at the EU, and we are actively sharing it. We are doing also lots of actually capacity training sessions, I just say it the way it is, training sessions for journalists as well on how to protect themselves online, but also with policymakers explaining what is encryption, how does it work, why is it important, and how does it actually support your government work, and what are the risks of breaking it.
Supongo que eso tiene implicaciones muy interesantes. Otra pregunta por ahí.
Voy a hacer la pregunta en español, perdóname.
The question will be made in Spanish. In 2024, the data protection law in 2024, the data protection law will be more stringent. So companies such as Meta do not want to buy or take part in certain apps that are already in use in some countries. 2024 is around the corner, but do you think this new act, this new legislation will be protecting us in reality? Are you talking about GDPR, right?
Complicated topic as well. So GDPR has been a very widely debated topic. There are actually lawsuits against Meta with Facebook at the time. And interestingly, the Internet Society chapter in France has actually been part of a lawsuit against Facebook. I'm calling it Facebook at the time, specifically for those reasons. There's a mechanism to actually denounce that. There is a lot of pressure on the big platforms to comply. There's consequences to that as well. For example, if you try to read newspapers from the US, some of them actually have not been able to comply with GDPR regulations, and so you no longer have access. They had to block the access for European citizens. And so there is a mechanism to denounce it. And actually any person, you don't have to be an organization, any person can actually denounce any misuse or non-compliance with GDPR regulation. And actually many people do it. So I would, is there a guarantee that it's always going to be done in the right way? I don't know, but there is a way to actually denounce it. So the mechanism has been put in place. So there's at least something in place to make sure that it's followed out.
Any more questions? I do have a question. My feeling about encryption is that it is quite unknown. Users do not know what encryption means. It's like when you have a health issue. You didn't know that you were healthy until you are unhealthy. That you were healthy until you are unhealthy. The same goes for encryption. You will notice it's gone when it's gone. And I want to know the role of the media. What do you think about the role of the media and the governments? Well, we know the governments are against encryption and they advocate encryption breaking. And the media are like echoing that. But so the population doesn't know what's really at stake because the mass media just echo and amplify the government's messages.
Everybody's job. And so if you think of the journalists, for example, the reason why we do these trainings for journalists is exactly that, is that not only that they understand for themselves why it's important, but also that they can actually talk about it, write about it, and help us do the advocacy work. Ultimately, that's it. I mean, I saw the hands up when I asked how many of you have seen the message that your messages on WhatsApp are encrypted. I don't know if you remember when WhatsApp was taken over by Meta, there was an exodus from WhatsApp to Signal. I remember half of our team went to Signal. They said, no, if the discussion is to remove encryption from WhatsApp, we will no longer use it. Now, my colleagues are very much the geeky guys, so obviously the security, I see smiles, I can. But so the majority actually moved to Signal and never came back. Many of my friends who are not in the industry, they stayed on WhatsApp, they waited to see what was happening. But many people don't even know what encryption is. And so the role of the media is also that, is to explain it, but it's also to explain, to your point, is you don't know why it's important until you don't have it. And I think the stories of people who have been affected by insecurity, because they didn't have encrypted messages, is really what is going to move people. When I hear what happened, when I saw what happened in Afghanistan, people go to jail because they say the wrong things. I mean, and governments knows about it. That's the reality. People get killed. I mean, to say it very, sorry, Jan, I'm really being in depressive mode, but that's the reality, and I think people don't realize because we don't live in that situation, and it's far away. It's Afghanistan, you know. And so I think it's important that people understand maybe it's not life-threatening, but maybe it's a criminal who steals all of your data related to your banking. And then what? Or you don't find a job because they actually broke encryption and they saw that you have a medical history that people don't dare, hiring you because you have a medical history. Those are the things of day to day that can actually, or you are, I don't know.
Se me ocurre, por ejemplo, en el periodismo un vaso.
For example, Anonymity of sources is a basic principle in journalism that has enabled many journalists to get access to secret information, to critical information that has been published. That wouldn't be able with encryption breaking. We don't have more time for questions, but it was very fascinating. I'm really, well, Jorge really scares me out. So. Let's stop here. Thank you. It was a real pleasure. Thank you for talking about the Internet Society Foundation and talking about all these interesting things that we will be thinking about in the future. Thank you.